Where's the microphone? Am I just going to speak like this, or is there a microphone? Huh? Bismillah. Oh, okay.
Try that.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen wa salatu wa salam ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'een. Thank you guys for inviting me out this evening, and hopefully, inshallah ta'ala, as we move through some of the information that I wanted to present to you tonight, we'll have some time for some questions and answers towards the end, inshallah. So as you guys know, during the khutbah, we talked about the three most important relationships in our lives. Does anyone remember what those three were? Go for it. Our relationship. Oh, slow down. Let us process. So first was our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I use the word God only because I'm streaming it live. And there are a lot of non-Muslims who listen. And so sometimes I might use language that some Muslims may be uncomfortable with. But I'm a convert to Islam. So you have to keep in mind where I come from. Using the word God might make you uncomfortable, but it is something that is comforting for me and for people who are still trying to find their way. All right, so I'm always considerate of that. So sometimes people may take issue with things that I say, but don't really understand why I'm saying the things that I'm saying, you know. So there is a deeper wisdom behind that. It's not just me, trying to Christianize Islam, not Muslim to feel more comfortable listening to what we have to offer. I mean, if we're just giving Islamic lectures just to Muslims, then I think that we're kind of defeating our own purpose, don't you think? I think we should be trying to appeal to people who are trying to find their way, sift through all of, the misnomers and misinformation that they've been fed about God, and try to find their way to the correct understanding of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So our relationship with Allah, our relationship with ourselves, and the relationship with the people that are closest to you, starting with your family members, your children, your spouses, your parents, and then branches off to your neighbors, your colleagues, your coworkers, until the general environment in which you live. So during the khutbah, we only covered two. We covered your relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we covered your relationship with yourself. Tonight's lecture, we're going to focus on the third component, which is our relationship with others. So the last component to this is the relationship that we have with others, starting with those who are closest to us. As the people that are closest to us, they are more deserving than anyone else to have the best and most healthy experience with you. So I'm talking to you guys that are listening now, all right, and including myself as well. The people that are closest to us, they are more deserving than anybody else to have the best version of who we are and what we have to offer. Be that our children, our spouses, our parents. Some of us have given our parents a very hard time growing up. I know I did. Some of us were teenagers and we literally gave our parents hell. only to arrive at adulthood. And now we're trying to, with a different understanding, a different level of maturity, to give our parents a different version of who we are, right? But as teenagers, we took our parents through a lot. And for those of you who are young and your parents are still alive, consider yourselves fortunate. I unfortunately, my mother died when I was 16. So where I am at in my life right now, where I could be offering her a different version of who I am, I don't have that opportunity. So don't end up in that situation where your parents are removed from this earth and you don't have an opportunity to make it right with them. You don't have an opportunity to show them a different side of you. There's nothing more painful than being able to arrive at a place of maturity in your life, understanding all of the things that your parents used to say to you. And in some instances, even as parents ourselves, we start to sound like our parents, right? Sometimes you say things to your children, you're like, my gosh, I sound just like my mother or my father, right? The very same things that we used to abhor, we used to dislike and couldn't stand, the things that they used to say to us, we are now saying to our own children, all right? And now that we have an opportunity to, show our parents a different side of us, unfortunately, some of our parents are no longer here and we don't have that opportunity. All right? So, out of all of the people that we share our lives with, our families deserve the best version of us. Our relationship with one another is simply an extension of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Some of us try to separate the two, right? We tend to think that our relationship with God is our relationship with God, and our relationship with other people is our relationship with other people, and one has nothing to do with the other, and that there could be nothing further than the truth. How we interact with one another is just an extension of our interaction with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he said, "Ar-rahimuna yarhamuhum ar-Rahman. Irham man fil ard yarhamukum man fis sama." He said, Ar-Rahimuna, those who are merciful, Yarhamuhum Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahman will have mercy upon them. Ar-Rahimuna, those who are merciful, Yarhamuhum Ar-Rahman, the most merciful will have mercy on them. Irham min fil ard, here's the point of reference. Irham min fil ard, Yarhamukum min fis sama. Be merciful to those that are on the earth, and the one that is above the heavens will have mercy on you. You see the connection? وَالْعَكْسُ بِالْعَكْسِ. And the opposite is the same. That if you are not merciful to those that are on the earth, then how can you expect mercy from the most merciful? How can you expect mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? Meanwhile, you show mercy to no one. It doesn't work like that. Our relationship with one another is an extension of our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so we want to make sure that the experience that we are giving the people that we share our space with is healthy and genuine. I may not be the best spouse. I may not be the best husband. I may not be the best wife. I may not be the best father. I may not be the best mother. I may not be the best son or daughter. But what you do get from me, it is exactly who I am. It's genuine. Sometimes we try to separate the flaws and we only want to pick the most perfect pieces of ourselves. And that's called self-hate, because it's all who I am. For some of the younger people here, the rapper Nas, he said that when you see the mistakes that I make, that's me. That's who I am. That's really me. The mistakes that I make. And sometimes we like to pick and choose which parts of us we want people to fall in love with. And we have to understand that we are a package deal, that all of me, you get all of me or you get none of me. Even the mistakes that I make. It's genuine. So we want to make sure that the experience that we are giving people, is healthy, is genuine. The experience that we give people will ultimately be the testimony of our journey in this life, whether good or bad, whether healthy or toxic. The Prophet ﷺ, one time he was sitting with his companions and a funeral procession went by. And some of the people started to say bad things about the person, right? Athna alayhi sharran. They started saying negative things about the person, about the deceased, as the funeral procession was going by. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Wajibat, 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 3 times. So it is, so it is, so it is. 3 times. And then another funeral procession went by. فَأَثْنَوْا عَلَيْهِمْ عَلَيْهِ صَاحِبُهَا خَيْرًا. And then people begin to praise the person, the deceased, say good things about the person. And the Prophet ﷺ said, wajibat, wajibat, wajibat. So it is, so it is, so it is. And what did he mean by that? He explained to the Sahaba, he said, مَنْ أَثْنَيْتُمْ عَلَيْهِ خَيْرًا وَجَبَتْ لَهُ الْجَنَّةِ وَمَنْ أَثْنَيْتُ عَلَيْهِ شرا وجبت له النار أنتم شهداء الله في الأرض أنتم شهداء الله في الأرض أنتم شهداء الله في الأرض. The Prophet ﷺ said that the one that passed by who you said good things about, then it is likely that he is going to Jannah. And the one who his funeral procession passed by and you said negative things about the person, it is likely that he is going to the hellfire. You all are the witnesses of Allah on the earth. You all are the witnesses of Allah on the earth. You all are the witnesses of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on the earth. And what does that mean? That means that praise for people based upon the experience that you had with them, right? You're not going to praise someone other than the fact that you had some experiences with that individual that were positive, that resonated with you in a positive way. And so therefore you have nothing but good to say about the person, right? The praise that you have for someone based upon the experiences that you've had with them is a sign of good for them as they transition from this life to the next life. And the opposite is the same. As the scholars say, that this is يعني مبشرات العاجلة. This is, immediate signs of good. This are immediate signs or immediate, glad tidings that are in this life. As Ibrahim alayhi salam, he mentioned in the ayat in Surah Al-Shu'ara, ayah 84, he said, وَجَعَلْ لِي لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ فِي الْآخِرِينَ. And grant me, a reputation of honor and dignity amongst the latter generations. Meaning, after I'm gone, I want what people know about me to be good. Give me a good reputation amongst the latter generations. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, honored that. As Allah says in another ayah, وَجَعَلْنَا لَهُمْ لِسَانَ صِدْقٍ عَلِيًّا. And we have given them, out of our mercy, their reputation, one of high status and high in honor. So Allah honored that. That Ibrahim alayhi salam is mentioned in every salat that we pray. Every salat that we make, Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam is mentioned in our salat. Not to mention that everything that we know about Ibrahim alayhi salam, Abu al-Anbiya, the father of the prophets and messengers, is nothing but good. So the question that we have to ask ourselves here tonight is, what will people say about you when you're gone? What will your children say about you when you're gone? You are a horrible father. You are a toxic mother. You are overbearing, burdensome, condescending, critic of every single thing that I do. What will your children say about you when you're gone? What type of experience are you leaving your children? What type of experience are you leaving your spouse? What will your wife say about you? If we could have our wives in a separate room and ask them to really disclose how they really feel about us, what would they really say? If they knew that there would be no consequences and they could really say exactly how they felt about us, what would they really say about us? And vice versa, what would we really say about our wives? if we knew that there were no consequences and we could just say exactly how we feel about them? Think about that for a moment. What type of experience are you leaving people with? Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he came to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam after his soul had already departed from his body. I mean, think about this situation. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's body is in Aisha's room, covered. He's deceased. His soul has already departed from his body. He died laying on Aisha's stomach, in between her chest and her navel. That's the last place where his head was laying. And then his soul departed from his body. So they wrapped him, and his body lay on the bed there. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, think about the relationship that was between Abu Bakr, wallah al-azim, I'm trying not to cry, man, subhanAllah. Think about the relationship that was between Abu Bakr and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That was his companion in the cave. That was his companion along the journey. When they were traveling from Mecca to Medina trying to escape, Abu Bakr would walk in front of him and then behind him and on his right and on his left. And the Prophet ﷺ said, Abu Bakr, what are you doing? It's as if you are afraid for me. And he said, I would rather give my life for yours. Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu and the Prophet ﷺ had so many experiences together. Abu Bakr walks into the room, sees the Prophet ﷺ's body laying on the bed, covered. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu, kashafa an wajhi. He takes the cover down off of the Prophet ﷺ's face. And he leans over and he kisses him. قبله. فقال أنت يا رسول الله بأبي أنت وأمي طبت حيا وميتا. He removes the kafan from the face of the Prophet ﷺ and he kisses the Prophet ﷺ on the forehead. This is a man who had so many experiences with this man. And he kisses the Prophet ﷺ and he said, طِبْتَ حَيًّا وَمَيِّتٍ. You're good in death as well as in life. The experiences that I had with you were nothing but good. You are good in death as you are good in life. Wallahi, walladhi nafsi biyadi la yudhikaka Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala al-maut marratain aw mautatain. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I swear by the one in whose hands my soul is in, Allah will never let you taste death twice. You're good even in life as well as you are in death. Look at the experience that the Prophet ﷺ gave Abu Bakr. It was always pleasant. It was always empowering. It was always encouraging. It was always forgiving. It was always a loving experience. Wallahi, the relationship between the Prophet ﷺ and Abu Bakr as two men, two friends, is probably better than some of our relationships between husband and wife. Two men who love each other for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wallahi, their relationship might be better than the relationship between some of the husbands and wives in our communities. And so was the experience that Abu Bakr gave to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. When the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said in his last khutbah, one of the last addresses that the Prophet ﷺ gave to his community, he said, إِنَّ اللَّهَ خَيَّرَ عَبْدًا بَيْنَ الدُّنْيَا وَبَيْنَ مَا عِنْدَهُ فَاخْتَارَ ذَلِكَ الْعَبْدِ مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ فَبَكَى أَبُو بَكْرٍ بُكَاءً شَدِيدًا. The Prophet ﷺ stood on the minbar and he said in a roundabout way, in a very indirect way, he said, perhaps Allah will give a servant of his a choice, an option, to either remain in this dunya or to seek what is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the next life. He said, and perhaps that servant will choose what is with Allah. And Abu Bakr radiallahu ta'ala anhu sitting there, knowing exactly what the Prophet is referring to, he starts crying profusely. Can you imagine? We're sitting all here now, and then someone just out of nowhere just burst out and start crying. Anas radiallahu ta'ala anhu said all the Sahaba turned around, were looking like, what's wrong with Abu Bakr? Why is he crying? And they later on realized that the Prophet ﷺ was referring to himself. وَكَانَ أَبُو بَكْرَ أَعْلَمُنَا. And Abu Bakr was the most knowledgeable from amongst us because no one knew what the Prophet was referring to or who he was referring to. Then the Prophet ﷺ goes to Abu Bakr, sees him crying. And he goes over to Abu Bakr and he says to him, Ya Abu Bakr, la tabki. Inna amanna nasi alayya fi suhbatihi wa malihi. Abu Bakr, anta. ولو كنت متخذا أحدا خليلا لاتخذت أبا بكر خليلا لكن الله اتخذني خليلا ولكن أخوة الإسلام ومودته ولا يبقين في المسجد باب إلا سد إلا باب أبي بكر. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, oh Abu Bakr, don't cry. This is the experience he's giving his companion. Don't cry. He said, there is none who aided me in their companionship and with their wealth more than you. And if I was going to take anyone as an intimate friend, I would have taken Abu Bakr as an intimate friend. But Allah had already taken me as an intimate friend, meaning that level of intimacy only belongs to God. No one else shares in that. Our problem as human beings, as Muslims and more specific, is that we leave our heart open to everybody. Welcome. There's a huge welcome sign on our heart inviting everybody in. And then when people betray you, when people, betray your trust, when people are treacherous towards you, then we want to shut everybody out and say, well, I have trust issues. You have trust issues not because people betray your trust, because you give your trust to everybody. You don't let anybody earn your trust. Trust is earned, not given away freely. You just have a welcome sign on your heart. Welcome into my life. Welcome into my heart. Aisha radiallahu anha, she said, Umirna an nunazzil an-nas manazilahum. We have been commanded to put everyone in their proper place. Some people just simply do not deserve to be in the comforts, do not deserve the privilege of being in the comforts of the intimacy of your heart. They don't belong there. They don't deserve it. And then we'll say, well, I have trust issues. Well, you know why you have trust issues, genius? Because you give your trust to everybody. You don't let people earn it. Anything that is given away for free will never be valued. Whether that is trust, whether that is love, anything that you don't make someone earn or work for, they will not value it. What part of that don't we understand? Even in marriage. When we first get married in the Muslim community, we don't really know each other like that. There's still a process of learning one another. And we just take it on face value that we're married, we're Muslim, husband and wife, and we just kind of give it away freely. And then when the person doesn't value it, over time, they prove that they don't value your time. They don't value your energy. They don't value your trust. They don't value all of the things that are important to you. Then you kind of, you want to shut the person out. You want to block them. You want to become cold, emotionally detached. When in fact, you didn't make the person work for anything. And you have no one to blame for that except yourself. But Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, he gave the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam the same experience that the Prophet gave to him. The only way that we can leave people better than the way that we found them is to be better than what we were before we found them. In our tradition, we leave people better than what we found them. When the Prophet ﷺ found Bilal, Miqdad ibn Aswad, and many of the Sahaba who had come from the lower tiers of pre-Islamic Meccan society. He found them voiceless. He found them downtrodden. He found them marginalized. He found them oppressed. And he elevated their status. He left them better than what he found them. When the Prophet ﷺ, don't you know, when he conquered Mecca, right? Everyone is standing around. The Prophet ﷺ looks in the crowd and says, "Where's Bilal? Bilal ibn Abi Rabah, where is he?" And Bilal said, "I'm here, O Messenger of Allah." The Prophet ﷺ, this is after he conquered Mecca and everyone's standing around. He tells Bilal, "Go on top of the Kaaba and call the adhan." The people from Mecca are looking around like, this black slave is going to stand on top of the Kaaba and call the adhan? A'udhu billah. The Prophet ﷺ said, "Qum ya Bilal ala al-Kaaba wa adhin." Stand on top of the Kaaba and call the adhan. He knew what he was doing. He's now standing at a place up high where all of the people who used to look down on him now have to look up to him. And all of the people who never heard his voice before, when he was screaming as he was being tortured, and the only thing that he could utter was ahad, ahad, and nobody else heard his voice, now everybody could hear his voice. The Prophet ﷺ knew exactly what he was doing. He was leaving Bilal better than what he found him. And the only way that we can do that, and we have to understand that when our lives intersect with the lives of other people, people are struggling in their lives. Whether these are friends that we come in contact with, spouses, people that we marry, people have had some horrible experiences in their lives. And we have to be cognizant of that and aware of that, and not to add to other people's trauma, not to add to their pain, but to elevate them and to make them feel better. And the only way that we can do that is when we are better. The Prophet ﷺ alluded to this fact when he said, "Al-kayyisu man dana nafsahu wa amila lima ba'd al-maut." Al-kayyis, the smart, the intelligent person, is the one who constantly finds fault with himself, constantly finding fault with himself, and does the deeds that will secure him a home in the hereafter. The wise person is the one who finds fault with himself, because the more you see your errors, the more work that you have to do on yourself. Ibn Qayyim rahimahullah ta'ala has a very beautiful passage where he says, "لا يسيء الظن بنفسه إلا من عرفها ومن أحسن ظنه بنفسه فهو من أجهل الناس بنفسه." Ibn Qayyim al-Jawziyya rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that none looks down on himself except the person who truly knows himself. And none thinks highly of themselves except the most ignorant of people about themselves. لأن حسن الظن بالنفس يمنع من كمال التفتيش ويلبس عليه فيرى المساوي محاسن وعيوب كمالا فعين السخط تبدي المساوي والعين الرضا عن كل عيب كليلة. He said, because when you think highly of yourself, حسن الظن بالنفس, when you think highly of yourself, يمنع من كمال التفتيش, it prevents you from digging deeper into yourself. Digging deeper into yourself, and يلبس عليه, and it causes you to become self-delusional. And you begin to see your evil as good, and you begin to see your uyub, your mistakes, your flaws, your mistakes as kamal, as a sign of perfection. And then, God forbid, we justify that. Well, I only do that because this. It's like, yeah, but you still don't see the error. You still don't see the fault and mistake. You're pathologizing, you're justifying, but it's still a mistake. It's still a character flaw of yours that you need to correct. And some of us are so delusional that we tend to think what is normally a mistake or a character flaw, we start to look at it as it's a sign of our perfection. Delusional. And he mentioned a line of poetry where he said, "Ayn as-sakh tubdi al-masawi," that the eye of displeasure sees every mistake. When you don't like someone, you see every single flaw and mistake that they make. And this might be, you know, a telltale sign that something is wrong with some of our marriages, because some of us, we can't even get a break. It's like I gotta walk on eggshells. Every little thing that I do, you point it out to me. You make it a point to point out every single flaw and mistake that I make. Ainu sakht. Maybe that's what we're suffering from. Maybe it's the eye of displeasure, because the eye of displeasure does not leave alone any mistake. You see every mistake. When you don't like someone, everything that they do is wrong. When you don't like someone, everything they do, everything they say, you seem to find a flaw or mistake in. وَعَيْنُ الرِّضَى عَنْ كُلِّ عَيْبٍ كَلِيلًا. But when you like someone, the eye of pleasure overlooks every flaw and mistake. That might be a formula for some of our marriages. Maybe we need to start looking with the eye of rida, the eye of pleasure, and maybe that'll cause us to overlook some of the flaws and mistakes, because there's a bias there. When I like you, I kind of overlook some of the things that you do. But when I don't like you, I see every flaw, every mistake that you make. Am I making sense? Does this make sense? Some of us as men, we go through that. It's like, do you really dislike me? Because you seem to point out every single thing that I do that's wrong. And perhaps if you learn to find pleasure in me, then you would learn how to overlook things. We overlook things when there's a bias. That favorite child that we have that can do no wrong, right? We all have that one kid that cannot do any wrong. And the reason why, it's not that the kid doesn't do anything wrong, it's just that we're so fond of the kid that we overlook it. And maybe we need to use that formula in dealing with one another. But when you are aware of your errors, you work towards fixing them. If it is not to be a better Muslim, then at least to give those with whom you share your space with, those whom you love, a better and more healthy experience. When Umar radiallahu anhu became the Khalifa, he heard some people whispering about the type of experience that he had given the Muslim Ummah in the past, which made them very apprehensive about embracing this new position of him being the Khalifa over the Muslims. So listen to what Umar said as he mounted the minbar and gave his first khutbah as the Khalifa. Umar said, قَدْ بَلَغَنِي أَنَّ النَّاسِ هَابُوا شِدَّتِي وخافوا غلظتي وقالوا قد كان عمر يشتد علينا ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم بين أظهرنا ثم اشتد علينا ورسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم ثم اشتد علينا وأبو بكر والينا دونه فكيف وقد صارت الأمور إليه. Umar got on the minbar and he said that it has reached me that some people are apprehensive about my harshness, and they fear my sternness. And they say that Umar was very harsh with us while the Prophet ﷺ was here. And he was very harsh with us for the 2 years that Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu was the Khalifa. And now he is the Khalifa and all of our affairs is in his hands. So what type of person, what type of experience is he going to give us now? Umar said, وَمَنْ قَالَ ذَلِكَ فَقَدْ صَدَقَ. Umar said, whoever said this from amongst you, he's right. Here, look at his maturity. He's owning the harsh experience that he has given his companions as he matured. At this point, we're going to see a change in his attitude and his approach. But the first thing that we got to do when we want to give someone a different experience is we have to own the previous experience. Create a new you and then forget about all of the pain that you've caused the person in the past. So you can't walk home tonight and say, honey, I want to give you a new experience with me, but not apologize for the traumatic and painful experience that you've given in the past. I know I haven't been the best of husband. I know that I haven't been the Khadija that you want in a wife. I know, I get it. We're all a work in progress. And I'm sorry for the horrible experience that I have given you. Wallahi, I'm telling you this because these are some of the same words that I have said to my wife. As a student in the university, I gave my wife hell. The neglect, the student of knowledge, sitting in the masjid, sitting with the shiyukh, running from lecture to lecture to lecture. And while all of that is great, and you believe that you're on this path to save the world from bid'ah, from innovation, and from the people of deviance, and from the kuffar, and blah, 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 to the end of it. While you're out with your cape on saving the world, you fail to realize that your primary responsibility you are neglecting. And it's important that, we own the experience that we've given people when we find out that we've given them such a horrible experience, and we're now, working on moving in a different direction to give the person a different experience. Umar radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he said, "Man qala dhalika faqad sadaq." Whoever from amongst you said that, you're absolutely right. He's owning it. He said, فقد كنت مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم سيفا مسلولا فلم أزل مع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم على ذلك حتى توفاه الله وهو عني راض. He said, during the time of the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم, I was like an unsheathed sword, cutting everybody. It was sincere, but it was still painful for the people who had to endure that. The many times the Prophet is saying, Abu Bakr, Umar, let him go. Umar, stop. Umar, don't do that. He said, I was like Sayfin Maslulin. I was like an unsheathed sword. And I remained like that until the Prophet ﷺ, until he called the Prophet, until Allah called him back, and he was pleased with me in that situation. He said, and then with Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu, I was the same. I was like a sayf, like a sword that was unsheathed. He said, until Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala called him back. He said, ثُمَّ إِنِّي وَلِيتُ أُمُورَكُمْ. And now I am in charge of your affairs. أَيُّهَا النَّاسِ فَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ تِلْكَ الشِّدَّةَ قَدْ أُضْعِفَتْ. He said, oh people, realize that shiddah, that harshness that I had, that sternness that I had, قَدْ أُضْعِفَتْ. It has now weakened, meaning I've matured. It's not as intense as it was years gone past. I've matured. He said, وَلَكِنَّهَا إِنَّمَا تَكُونُ عَلَى أَهْلِ الظُّلْمِ وَالتَّعَدِّي عَلَى الْمُسْلِمِينَ. He said, and now my harshness and my sternness will only be reserved for those who are oppressive and those who transgress against the Muslims. He said, أَمَّا أَهْلُ السَّلَامَةِ وَالدِّينِ وَالْقَسْطِ فَأَنَا أَلِينُ لَهُمْ مِنْ بَعْضٍ لِبَعْضٍ. He said, but as for the people who want peace, peaceful people, religious people, sincere people, أَلِينُ لَهُمْ, then I'm going to be easy and gentle with them. I'm giving them another experience. So Umar radiallahu anhu, he eventually realized that the experience that he was giving the people around him was not so pleasant. He grabbed the man in the salat. Now we can go through the whole Rolodex, right? If you're familiar with Umar's life. The hadith of the man who was reciting, I believe, Surah to Yasin, but he was reciting it in a different dialect than what the Prophet ﷺ had taught Umar. And Umar said, while he's narrating the hadith, he said, لَقَدْ هَمَمْتُ أَنْ أَلُبَّهُ وَأَنَا فِي الصَّلَاةِ. He said, I had the intention to yoke him from his neck while I was in the salah. He said, لَكِنِّي صَبَرْتُ. But I was patient until the salah was over. And when he made the taslim, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, assalamu alaikum rahmatullah, Umar said, I walked up to him and grabbed him by his throat and I dragged him for ajurruhu ila Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. I'm dragging him to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is Umar. Umar, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, Ya Umar, da'ahu, let him go. What's the issue? Umar said, O Messenger of Allah, he's reciting a surah that you taught me, but not in the manner that in which you taught me. The Prophet ﷺ told the guy, recite. And he said, Umar, recite. He said, both of you are right. The Quran has been revealed in 7 different modes of recitation. Relax, Umar. Right? Umar, radiallahu ta'ala anhu, in a narration, he upset Abu Bakr to such a degree that Abu Bakr refused to forgive him. He upset Abu Bakr. The narration doesn't mention what happened. It just mentioned that Abu Bakr was angry and upset. Umar went away and came back and knocked on the door and asked Abu Bakr for forgiveness, and Abu Bakr refused to forgive him until Umar went to the Prophet ﷺ and told him what happened. And then the Prophet ﷺ approached Abu Bakr and said, are you the one who your companion came to you asking you for forgiveness and you refused to forgive him? In another narration, the Prophet Umar radiallahu anhu, he went and he questioned the Prophet ﷺ about the decision that he made during the Treaty of Hudaybiyah, to such a degree that Umar said when they got back to Medina, he had to fast for a few days to expiate for his behavior with the Prophet ﷺ. After the Prophet signed the peace treaty of Hudaybiyah, Umar went to him and he said, aren't you the messenger of Allah? Anta Rasulullah. This is the Umar talking to the Prophet ﷺ. Aren't you the messenger of Allah? And the Prophet ﷺ said, Bala, ya Umar. Of course I am, Umar. He said, Alasna ala al-haq wa aduuna ala al-batil. He said, aren't we the ones that are on the truth and our enemies are on falsehood? The Prophet ﷺ said, Bala, ya Umar. Of course, Umar. He said, فَلِمَاذَا نَقْبَلُ الدِّنِيَّ فِي دِينِنَا. Then why do we always have to take the shorter end of the stick? Why? He's questioning the Prophet ﷺ. And the Prophet ﷺ told him, he said, Ya Umar, inni Rasulullah wa lastu a'asihi. Umar, I am the messenger of Allah and I don't disobey my Lord. I'm the messenger of Allah, I don't disobey my Lord. You're reproaching me about something that my Lord commanded me to do. And Umar said, when I got back to Medina, I had to fast for a couple of days because to expiate from my sin of my disrespect towards the Prophet ﷺ. All of this and more, only to arrive at a place of self-actualization and eventually self-rectification in order to give people a better experience with Him. We don't own the people that are in our lives. We just experience them. You don't own your husband. You don't own your wife. You don't own your children. Time and time again, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proves to us. We say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong. We say that, but do we really actualize that? We take ownership of other human beings when in fact they're only on loan to us from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And for the time that we have them in our space, we only get to experience them. We don't own them. You don't own your wife. You don't own your husband. He's not your husband. Sorry to say, I know in some circles, even the mention of a man being with more than one wife is enough to send the whole community in an uproar. Meanwhile, it's clearly spelled out for us in the Quran as well as in the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. But Habiba, who we're going to talk about tomorrow, when she finally left Ethiopia and came to Medina and she experienced the Prophet ﷺ, everything that she had imagined being with him would be like, it exceeded any idea or any expectation she ever had in her mind. And one day she said to the Prophet ﷺ, Inkih ukhti, marry my sister. And the Prophet ﷺ even himself found the request strange. Marry your sister. He turned to Habiba and he said, أَوَتُحِبِّينَ ذَلِكَ? Would you like me to marry your sister? You're okay with that? Listen to what she said. She said, O Messenger of Allah, لَسْتُ بِمُخَلِّيَ بِكَ. I don't have you to myself anyway. You don't belong to me. I got to share you with the other women that you're married to. And I have to share you, most importantly, with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Most of his nights were standing up praying. Most of his nights were up praying. Long nights standing up in salat till his feet would bleed. And one narration, Aisha radiallahu anha, she rolls over and she feels the bed, she feels the Prophet gone. Mind you, the room is pitch black. And she's feeling all around the room trying to find out. She could hear him, Allahu Akbar. He's up at night praying. But she can't find out where he is, so she's feeling, and she touches his head and he's in sujood. He slips out of the bed, gets up at night and prays. I don't have you all to myself anyway. I have to share you with Allah. I have to share you with your companions. I have to share you with your other wives. I don't have you to myself anyway. I don't own you. This is, something that, we have to process as human beings. We like to take ownership over people. Yet we say, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. To Allah we belong, and to Allah we shall return. Do we really believe that? You don't own people. You just experience them for the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave you. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so beautiful. He said to Aisha while he was on his deathbed, Wallahi, Shakespeare couldn't have written anything more poetic than this. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in his last moments. Aisha's there by his bedside. And he turns to Aisha and he said, Wallahi, inni la ubali bil maut. منذ أن عرفت أنك زوجتي في الجنة. لا إله إلا الله. He said to Aisha, Wallahi, I don't care about death from the moment that I knew that you were going to be my wife in Jannah. Death doesn't bother me. The agony of death is a painful process. As the Prophet ﷺ himself was saying as he was going in and out of consciousness, Inna lil maut la sakarat. That maut, death has its agony, it's painful. And as he's going through that process, he turns to his wife and he says to her, La ubali bil maut. منذ أن عرفت أنك زوجتي في الجنة. I don't care about death. The pain and the agony that is associated with this process does not bother me from the moment I learned that you were going to be my wife in Jannah. Meaning, the experience that you have given me in this life was enough to numb me. The thoughts of the times that we had together, the thoughts of you being my wife in Jannah is enough to numb me to the pain that I am experiencing right now in this life. Is this the type of experience that we are giving to one another? His experience with Aisha was so pleasant that it was enough to ease the pain and the agony of death. And while many concentrate on the various acts of worship, believing that it somehow justifies their treatment of others, what they don't realize is that all of the hard work that you do with respect to your ibadah can all be taken away from you as a compensation for the way that you mistreat others. See, some of us have this notion that I get up at night and pray, I fast on Mondays and Thursdays, I do all of these great acts of ibadah, yet I treat people horribly. And we think that we're justified. We think that our relationship, our perceived relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala justifies us treating his servants, treating his creation any way we want to. Let me disprove that so that we don't walk away thinking that that is okay. All of the good deeds that you are doing may all be taken away from you Yawm al-Qiyamah and given to the people that you mistreated as a compensation for your bad behavior. The Prophet ﷺ He said in a hadith, إن المفلس من أمتي من يأتي يوم القيامة بصلاة وصيام وزكاة ويأتي وقد شتم هذا وقذف هذا وأكل مال هذا وسفك الدم هذا وضرب هذا فيعطى هذا من حسناته وهذا من حسناته حتى إذا فنيت حسناته قبل أن يقضى عليه أخذ من خطاياهم فطرحت عليه ثم طرح في النار. The Prophet ﷺ, pay attention to this hadith. What I'm talking about, what am I debunking here? I'm debunking this idea that because I believe that I have a great relationship with God, I pray, I fast, I do all of these great things. I go make Hajj, I'm the caretaker of the masjid, I'm the imam of the masjid. And I believe that because I have this great position with Allah, that I can treat people any way I want to. I'm a scholar. You have some scholars who are very sarcastic, very disrespectful, very condescending when they talk to people as if you know it all, you got it all figured out, and everybody else is just stupid and haven't arrived at some level of understanding that you respect. And you believe that you are justified. The Prophet ﷺ said, Al-Muflis min ummati, the bankrupt person from my ummah is the person that comes Yawm al-Qiyamah, bi salatin, he prayed, was siyamin, he fasted, was zakatin, and zakat, has all of these great acts of worship that he's done. Lakin yati wa qad shatama hadha, but he has insulted this person. Wa akala mal hadha, and he's taken the wealth of this person unjustly. For you Muslim business owners, don't use your contract with Allah, meaning your shahada, as a means of taking money from Muslims unjustly. Taking the wealth of people unjustly. Daraba hada, you hit this person, whether it is a man hitting his wife or a wife hitting her husband or hitting your children. Physical violence against children does not correct the behavior. It only reinforces the behavior. I mean, think about that. We see a child doing something wrong, a child hitting another child, and then we'll go and we'll hit the child for hitting another child. Like, what sense does that make? Do you realize what you're doing? You're basically reinforcing the behavior. This child hit a child, you hit that child. So basically, you as the parent have now taught the child that when you do something wrong, you hit. We are reinforcing the behavior. Children being hit because they don't get good grades at school. I work in an Islamic school, so I know the stories. Stop identifying your child's worth based upon a letter. A, B, C, D. That does not define the worth of your child. And many school systems are moving out of this phase of using the lettering system, which is very invalidating and it's very subjective. It does not tell you whether or not the child understands. If you say an A is from a 90 to a 100, or 90 to 95, and then 95 to 100 is an A plus. And because I'm an 89, I'm a B, so I'm 1 point away from being an A. Like, I mean, really? 1 point away from being an A? Think about the logic that's in that. And then you have these children who are afraid to go home with less than an A because they have parents who believe that their worth is based upon the letter that's on their report card. And will be physically disciplined for coming home with less than an A. Let me share something with you as a teacher. An A does not mean that your children is brilliant. An A does not mean that your child understands. And in many school systems, it only means that your child is good and proficient at regurgitating the information that was given to them.
They just memorize it. Doesn't mean that they understand. Doesn't mean that they are on the comprehension level that they are supposed to be on. But you come Yom Al Qiyamah, you get up at night and you pray, fast Mondays and Thursdays, you make Hajj every year, make Umrah 2-3 times a year. Great. But you come Yom Al Qiyamah and you hit this person, you insulted this person, you took the wealth of this person unjustly, backbit this person, and so this person will take some of your good deeds. This person will take some of your good deeds. That person will take some of your good deeds until you run out of good deeds, but there's still people you owe. حتى إذا فنيت حسناته قبل أن يقضى عليه. Until you run out of good deeds and there's still people you owe, guess what happens? Some of their bad deeds will be given to you, and then you will be tossed in the hellfire. Understand something in ending, that good character can grant you the same station and privilege as those who exert themselves in acts of devotion. You don't have to separate the two. Oh, this person only focuses on good character while I focus on doing acts of ibadah and worship. A person who has good character can reach the same heights as the person who does acts of ibadah without doing the acts of ibadah that they do. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, إِنَّ الْمُؤْمِنِ لَا يُدْرِكَ بِحُسْنِ خُلُقِهِ دَرْجَةَ الصَّائِمِ الْقَائِمِ. He said that indeed the believer, by way of his good character or her good character, can reach the same station, the same heights as a person who prays and fasts. Prays all night and fasts all day. Why are they given the same privilege? Because the same amount of energy that you exert when you fast and you get up at night and pray, that's the same amount of energy that a person who is constantly trying to refine and control their behavior, they're exerting the same amount of energy. So they get the same reward. Al-jaza'u min jins al-amal. They get the same reward. The same restraint, the same pain and the same energy that it takes for me to control myself, to not respond back to a person when they're disrespectful, to smile at a person in their face even though I don't want to smile, to shake the hand of an individual who I really don't want to even be in close proximity, let alone touch your hand. But I do it anyway. I'm exerting the same amount of energy that you would exert if you were fasting all day and praying all night. So therefore, al-ajr as-sawa, they are in the reward the same. So in ending, as I always like to give solutions rather than tackle the problem, but I always like to give some tips that we can use that would help us to actualize the concept. Is there everybody understand the concept that I'm talking about here? The relationship that we have with other people, that we should give people that we love the best version of ourselves, the best experience that we could possibly give them, so that when we depart from this life, they only are left with good memories. Ways in which you can give people a better experience. Number one is to take ownership of your errors and stop deflecting. When you are wrong, own it. Say, I'm wrong. Because when you own your error, you leave the person not to be frustrated. You leave the person not to think that they're crazy. You know how you're constantly pointing out something that the person is doing wrong, and they're constantly deflecting, constantly finding excuses, and it starts to make you think, well, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, every time I bring something to this person's attention, they always find a way to deflect. And you literally start thinking that you're the one that's crazy. So if you own your wrong, own your error, you make it easy for the person to mentally just relax because they know they're not crazy. Own your mistakes. Own your wrong. Number two, the matters that don't concern your spouse or don't concern anyone else, your immaturities, your insecurities, that's your journey. Your children shouldn't have to suffer because you come home upset because you had a bad day. You had a bad day. Your children don't have to suffer because you had a bad day. Your spouse should not have to suffer because you are having a bad day. That's your journey. Somebody else doesn't have to take that ride with you. And it's unfair that because you had a bad day at work or because you had a bad experience, that you come through your door and now everybody in the home has to feel that. It's unfair. Own your own journey. Whatever you are suffering through, whatever you are going through, you can share it with your spouse and give them an opportunity to, kind of take that ride with you if they choose so, if they choose to do so. But you don't have a right to impose on other people what pain you are experiencing. But take ownership, take, matters that only involve you, let it only involve you. Don't include other people in that. Number 3, self-compassion. This is a big one. Self-compassion. What does that mean? To be compassionate with yourself, be merciful to yourself. We are harsh with people about things that we would usually be harsh with ourselves about. So if you learn how to be compassionate with yourself, what happens? You learn how to be compassionate with other people. Sometimes when we see somebody do something wrong, we rush with judgment, we rush with correction in such a harsh fashion because we say to ourselves that if I would do that, I would be embarrassed. Okay, but if you learned how to be compassionate with yourself and give yourself credit for being a human being, then perhaps you would be compassionate with others when you see them make the same mistakes. You guys follow me? Does that make sense? The more mercy you extend to yourself, the more mercy that you are able to extend to other people. So learning how to be compassionate with yourself. Self-compassion breeds a better and more healthier experience with the people whom we love. Number 4, time should be quality. That when we spend time with people, with our children, with our spouses, the time should be quality. With our mothers, our fathers, don't send your mother a text message. Pick the phone up and call her. Wallah al-Azim, your mother carried you for 9 months. Wahnan ala wahn. Difficulty on top of difficulty. The very least you can do is to pick up the phone and call her. You send a text message. Aib alik. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. Quality time. That time is precious. Allah swears by time. Wal asr. Time is important, and time should be quality. We are building memories that will surpass our physical existence. So every moment should count. We're building memories with the people that we love. And so every moment that we share with them should be quality time. It should count. Because these memories are going to surpass our death. It's going to surpass our lives. When we're dead and gone, the same memories that we've created will be embedded in the minds of our children, of our spouses, of our family members. So time should be quality. You see people at restaurants, the husband on his phone, the wife on her phone, and y'all out for dinner. I'm really trying to figure out how that's quality time. And for millennials, maybe that's okay. But for my generation, that's not okay. We remember a time when there was no such thing as a cell phone or Google. But time should be quality. Number 5, humility. Not putting yourself above someone, not allowing people to feel the weight of your presence or your capabilities. We don't have to throw around, well, I got my master's degree, well, I have a PhD in this. You throwing around your weight, you allowing people to feel the weight of your quality and your presence. That's not humility, especially if the one that you are in the relationship with has not reached the same either academic heights or financial heights. We're constantly throwing around how much money we make, how much money we spend. Do you know how that makes someone feel? To constantly remind them about how much money you make and how much money you've spent on this and that. I mean, why do you have to throw that out there like that? So that the person feels the weight, so that the person feels incompetent and less than in your presence. Humility. The Prophet ﷺ he raced with Aisha. Here's the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They're on their way to go fight a battle. He tells the Sahaba to move up. Move up. He tells Aisha, get down out of the compartment that she rides in. And he races with her. This is the messenger of Allah, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he allows her the win on top of that. He allows her to win. That's humility. I don't have to let you feel the weight of my qualities or my capabilities or my presence. That even though I'm on my way to go fight a war, don't know if I'm going to return home or not, I still make time for you. And on top of racing, I let you win. And then he raced her years later after she had gotten older, and he beat her. And he said, "Hadihi litil, I beat you this time because I let you beat me the last time." Even the odds. We're even the playing field. Right? Number 6, forgiveness. Forgiveness is one of the greatest ways to create a healthy relationship with the people in your circle. We're all going to do things that are wrong. We're going to share information we shouldn't have. We're going to make decisions that infringe on somebody else's, comfort or convenience. We're going to do things, but we have to learn how to forgive. Forgiveness is very powerful. And a person who does not forgive will not be in relationships with anybody for any substantial amount of time. You have to learn how to forgive if you are going to be in a relationship with anybody. And there's some of us who we take no shorts. I want everything that's mine. I'm not letting anybody give me any, I'm not taking any losses. And in that situation, you're always going to find yourself jumping from one friendship to another, one relationship to another, because you don't know the art or the power of forgiveness. Number 7, change your eating habits. This is a good one. So let me ask you, how does changing your eating habits help give the people around you a better experience? Question. Because you are what you eat. Absolutely. That's exactly what I have written on my paper. You are what you eat. So explain, what does that mean? Yeah, you said it. Own your words. What does that mean? You are what you eat. And how does that apply to what we're talking about here? When you eat good, you feel good. And when you feel good, come on, finish with the formula. Go ahead. You were right there. All right, he said when you eat good, you feel good. And then when you feel good, you act good. You treat people good. Right? When you're happy, do you give the people that are around you the horrible experience? This is why we tell children to eat breakfast before they come to school. You come to school, you haven't eaten breakfast, you're hungry, you don't want to participate in class, you got your head down, you're yelling at your neighbor, the person sitting next to you. You're giving everybody in the classroom a horrible experience because you haven't had any nourishment. And the same way works for your soul, believe it or not. When you nourish your soul, you're in a good state, you're in a good space, you're peaceful on the inside, you give everybody around you a pleasant experience. But when you're having your soul is tormented, you're giving everybody around you. And this is the case with people who don't pray. Wallah al-Azim, believe me, when a person does not pray, does not establish the regular salah, there's no way in the world that you could give the people around you a pleasant experience with you. Your soul is tormented, man. You're not nourishing your soul. Your soul is calling for a better experience inside your body, yet you are refusing to give your soul a better experience. So yes, change your eating habits. You are what you eat. When you eat healthy, your attitude becomes healthy, and then your behaviors, your interactions with the people around you become healthy. Number 8, express appreciation much. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, "La yashkurillah man la yashkurun nas." He who does not thank the people has not thanked Allah. appreciation. There is no validation that is greater than making the person that you are in a relationship with feel appreciated. And this is especially true for men. One of our greatest love languages is to know that we are appreciated. A man will do anything you ask him to do, for the most part, if he knows that you are appreciative of it. Am I lying? A man will not care about the price tag when he knows that he is appreciated. When do we start withholding? When do we start withdrawing? When we feel like we're giving, and it's just not appreciated. And this is something that the Prophet ﷺ pointed to when he said the majority of the women are in the hellfire. Not because they're women, but because women are always the majority in any society. So obviously their numbers will always outweigh the numbers of men. The female to male ratio will always be dominant. It just makes sense, right? We don't need a whole in-depth detail about that. In every society and every time, women always outnumber men. So obviously the vast majority of the people in the hellfire are women. But the ones that are in the hellfire, what are they in there for? The Prophet ﷺ said because of their ingratitude to their husbands. He said, a man yuhsin ila ihdahunna ad-dahr. A man can spend his entire life doing nothing but right by his wife. And the moment he does one thing wrong, she says, Ma alimtu minka khayran qat. You have never done anything good for me. Oh, what you've done? You paid the rent? Oh, whoop-dee. You paid the mortgage? Good for you. Like, as if that means I gave my whole check. What are you talking about? What good for me? These are real adult arguments. Don't laugh. This is serious business here, man. It's like, don't downplay that. Even the Prophet ﷺ said, don't dismiss any small act of kindness. Paying the mortgage, paying the rent, making sure the bills are taken care of, that's not a small task. Some men give their entire paycheck. Hello? Nothing. Like, do you know what it feels like to get paid and then to cash that check and then hand the whole thing over and have nothing for yourself? Nothing. I mean, I skim off the top. You know, I take a little bit for my coffee for a few days. And then to have someone say, you know, oh, so you think that you're doing something because you paid for this or because you did that? And it's just like, that's the ultimate dismissal. Many men, our love language is acts of service. That's the way that we express love. We may not say verbally, I love you. But that I love you is conveyed in the way that we make sure that you have everything that you need. That is our way of saying I love you without actually saying I love you. There's a book that I've mentioned before called The 5 Love Languages. Go buy the book. So you understand, you can identify what your spouse's love language is so you don't become dismissive of the way that your spouse is actually saying I love you. But the Prophet ﷺ said that a man could spend his whole life doing nothing but right by his wife. And the moment he does one thing wrong, she says, you've never done. It's the ultimate dismissal. It's like you wrote me in pencil and then you erase me. You've never done anything. I've never done any. And also be mindful of the generalities. Don't say, you always do this. I don't always do that. Well, you know what I mean. No. Own your words. You said it. Don't use generalities in your conversations. It's dismissive. So, express appreciation. It's one of the greatest ways to tell someone, like, I appreciate you. I appreciate everything that you do. Tonight, when you guys go home with your spouses, with your children, I want you to use this. I appreciate you. I just want you to know, I know that I don't say it all the time, but I want you to know that I really appreciate what you do. All that you do. And watch how the person you say that to, watch how their demeanor changes. Watch. If you don't believe me, try it. Number 9, self-disclose. Sometimes expressing what you are going through, letting your wall down, expressing what you're going through, you give other people permission to let their wall down and express what they're going through. And this is how relationships fare, because sometimes people want to withhold and make it seem like I got it all figured out. Meanwhile, you're just a mess over here, letting your walls down, vulnerable, talking about everything you're going through. And it's just like you're looking at the other person like, you never talk about anything going on in your life. It's always like your life is perfect. Like you never have any, well, I go through things, but I just handle it differently. It's like, no, what you're trying to do is make it seem like you're perfect and I'm the mess. So sometimes when you self-disclose and you let your guard down and you self-disclose, you give other people permission to feel like it's okay to be human. And lastly, positivity. Keep negativity at bay at all costs. Shaitan enters into our relationships through negativity. Keep your negative energy over there. If it ain't positive, don't bring it in here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَقُلِّ عِبَادِي يَقُولُ الَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ إِنَّ الشَّيْطَانَ يَنْزَغُ بَيْنَهُم. That say to my servants that they should choose the best words when they are communicating with one another, because shaitan seeks entry through the words that are ambiguous. They could mean this, could mean that. Don't leave any room for shaitan to interpret for you. Say what you mean what you say. And choose the best words when you are communicating with one another. Shaitan looks for the weakness. The Prophet ﷺ says Shaitan has given up and he hopes that he will be worshipped by those who establish regular prayer, lakin tafrish bainakum, but he sows discord between you through negativity. So keep it all positive in your life. As the Prophet ﷺ said, the best deed that you can do, idkhal as-surur ala akhik, is to place happiness into the heart of your brother or your sister in Islam. That's one of the best deeds. To say positive things, to bring positive information. Don't share negative information. Whether on social media and other places, I hate when you see people sharing what's going on in Gaza. We all know, we are aware of what's going on. Why do you have to share the pictures? I don't need imagery. But it only helps and assists the shaitan with creating, this feeling of, being depleted, this feeling of, being down. It only assists him in doing that. So this is what I wanted to present to you guys. I'm sorry I went so long. But as Imam Ahmed, rahimahullah ta'ala, he said that when Abu Zur'a al-Razi would come through Baghdad, we would stop praying tahajjud, we would stop praying qiyamul layl so we could go to his lessons and listen. So it wasn't all the time, so I'm not here all the time. So the time that I am here, I'm expecting that some people, you guys can adjust your schedules just a little bit to accommodate me. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all for the accommodation. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you and allow us all to follow the best of what we've heard. هذا وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا وسبحانك ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين. And here comes the difficult part, which is the question and answers. So if you got to go, you might as well go because we're going to be here another hour. Yep, go for it. Just give me one, not a couple, just one. Say it again.
You were not Muslim. You converted to Islam. What makes you think? What brought you to become Muslim? What did you see?
قصة طويلة حبيبي. It's a long story. You say, how did I convert to Islam? If you go to the Dean Show, Eddie on the Dean Show, I did an interview with him. So that kind of will help me just kind of filter out that question. I did a whole interview with him, how I converted to Islam. So if you just find the Dean Show on YouTube, you can see it. Yeah.
You said that if you were back to someone and then you said that you did this thing and you said that you should try to apologize to them before something happens. What if you're gonna apologize to them but travel somewhere for customers?
So he said that what if you want to apologize to someone and they're no longer around for you to fix the situation? Then you can make dua for them. The Prophet ﷺ, he said that you can make dua for someone. He said that if someone gives you something, then you should repay it back. And if you do not have the wherewithal to give it back to them, then make dua for them until you feel like you've repaid them. So dua is actually something that we can use to help us in an attempt to try to repair a situation. So you make dua for the person. If you don't have access to them immediately, then get up in the middle of the night, make a sacrifice on your part. It's not just, oh, let me raise my hand and make dua. No, the ultimate testament of love is sacrifice, right? Didn't Prophet Ibrahim have to sacrifice his son to prove to Allah that he loved him more? Yeah. So it's not convenience. It's not, well, let me sit here and make dua for the person. No, get up at the third of the night when it's an inconvenience for you, if you really want to prove to the person that you love them, and make dua for them. Yeah. Questions? If you want to write your question down, you can write it and send it, or you can ask verbally. I don't really know what the protocol is here. If you want to write your question down, you can write it and send it up. Anyone else? Alhamdulillah, you guys will make my job easier. I literally hate answered questions. I do. Honestly, because that's where all the mistakes are made.
Coach, you said that if you, like you just said, you don't come here that often, so might as well take advantage of it. You know. You said if you have done something bad, or if you were harsh with your spouse, and you said you're sorry, you mean it. But then if you do, you said you own the word. Okay, you own the word. I said I'm sorry. But if that incident happened again, or something else happened, and you escalated your voice, or you scream, or you said something, then how does that thing work? I mean, because on one hand you said sorry, you said it, you own it, and you ask for Allah's forgiveness also. But then
you do it again.
How can you handle that? Or how can you go back and try to fix that issue? Because that's what I would like.
I got you. So he's saying, what if you did something wrong to your spouse, you went and you apologized, but then you turn around and you did it again? So a mistake made the first time is an error. A mistake made the second time is a behavior. That means that there's something that the person needs to correct about themselves. Because if you continuously do it, it's not a mistake. It's a behavior pattern. And there's something deeper there that you need to fix. You can't just do something wrong and then say, I apologize, and then turn around and do it again, I apologize. No, you're not apologizing for the wrong. You are missing the point. The point is that you're not making the mistake. The point is that that is a behavior pattern that you need to fix or you need to correct. No need to keep apologizing for it. Go deeper and begin working on that particular character flaw. Because there's no forgiveness that is greater than a changed behavior. Understand? If you want to prove to someone that you're really sorry, change the behavior. Not say verbally, I'm sorry. Right? Yeah. How do you go about forgiving people when they've hurt you? Great question. How do you go about forgiving people when they've hurt you? Ali, I know you've heard, we've covered this before, right? How do you go about forgiving people when they've hurt you? When you look at the story of Prophet Yusuf, right? I'm sure that whatever the person did was not as bad as what Yusuf's brothers did to him. They threw him in a well. They even plotted to kill him. They threw him in a well. They sold him into slavery. They lied on him to the end of it. And even at the end of all of that, when they finally realized that that was Yusuf in Egypt, قَالُوا أَإِنَّكَ لَأَنْتَ Yusuf. They said, are you Yusuf? Yusuf said, yeah. He said, لَا تَثْرِيبَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْيَوْمِ يَغْفِرُ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. I don't blame you today for what you did to me in the past. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. Because forgiveness at that point is about you, not about them. Forgiveness is about you. It's about you not carrying around resentment towards the person. Resentment will kill you, literally. These type of emotions, they will destroy you internally. And in order for you to move on from the pain and the situation that was created, that created the pain, you have to learn how to forgive the person. Now, obviously, that's based upon the type of infraction that was done. There are some things that may possibly never be forgivable, you know? I can't say whether a person should forgive them for this or for that. That's up to them. I'm just saying that forgiveness helps you to lay down the burden of resentment. Because if you hate a person long enough, you will become them. This is why hate is dangerous. You hate, you become the very thing that you hate. And sometimes, in certain cases, as the victim, you end up becoming the villain. You become the bad guy because you use your pain rather than processing it and learning how to move on from it. You use it to stay in this place of toxicity, and then you become hurtful to other people that are around you. And so you become no different than the person that caused you the pain from the beginning. So forgiveness is about you, and that's a process. That's not something, there's stages to grief, the 7 stages of grief. That's the same stages that we go through when we're processing any type of pain. That's not something that you just learn how to do tomorrow. I'm just going to forgive the person. You have to learn how to, number one, you have to learn how to process what happened. Your emotions, your feelings, everything that you have invested in that situation. Maybe at some point confronting the person, maybe giving the person an opportunity to apologize, which makes it easier for you now to move on. So there's steps to that, right? If that makes any sense.
Like, we'll pause here, inshallah. So, tomorrow, inshallah, we have a lecture. Jazakallah khair, by the way. Beautiful, inspiring time, alhamdulillah. But it continues, inshallah. The show does not end tonight. It continues tomorrow at Fajr. Fajr is not 9:30, 10 a.m., 12, whenever we wake up. 6:30, inshallah. We'll have Fajr here, okay? Inshallah. Pray Fajr. We'll have breakfast right after. Talk before or first?
First we talk.
First the talk, then the breakfast, inshallah. So you have, in order to get the breakfast, you gotta earn it. So we have the talk, then we'll have the breakfast. And the topic is, who can remind me?
It'll be along the same lines, but
Yeah,
the
right.
topic is for the men.
Right.
It's for the men.
Now, there was a request of some sisters wanted to.
Yeah, sure.
So the sisters are more than welcome to come too as well. And then, inshallah, what I also want the brothers to do, inshallah, have a friend